people are still out there, let me know if I have sound and video. Is anybody out there? Oh my goodness. People are probably sick of me. They're like, is this for real? Um, if anybody's out there, let me know. Let me know if I have sound and video. Hello, I'm singing terribly. I'm singing terribly. Oh! I checked myself, so I got the echo. Yay! This isn't my best camera, but I had an old tablet, if you can believe it. And so I dug out an old tablet I had at the bottom of my backpack, and it's working better than anything else I've used tonight. Oh my goodness, I moved around so much. Mickey was like, screw you, and he kind of left his cute little perch that he had back there on the fridge. He was like, gosh, what are you doing? And now he's over in the corner. I feel bad. I'm sorry, Mickey. He'll come out when he's done being mad. Oh my goodness. So for anybody who's watching this later, this has been my third attempt at a live. First I had bad video, but my audio was good, but I didn't want to keep talking through that. Then I tried to go on my laptop and I had terrible audio. And I finally gave up. It was not muted. I wish it was as easy as an unmute button. That wasn't what was happening. For some reason, the laptop refused to pick up either its internal mic, which is weird because I've zoomed from that computer. It refused to pick up the internal mic or an external mic, so I just gave up. And now I'm on my third attempt at this. I really wanted to have an edited video for the day, but when I'm going through stuff like that, this is hard for me to film it because I'm just frustrated and I'm trying to like sort out information, and I don't want to be pulling out cameras and shoving them on people's faces or like narrating to the camera about what's going on. So I got up early this morning, like super happy. I'm like, I have a catalytic converter. I have a guy who said he'll do the work. And then I get there and he's like, it's not compliant. I won't install it. Okay, so let's pray for this computer. I mean, it should be fine. It's charging. But long story short, I am going to go get a differing opinion from him. I do not want to pay for a different catalytic converter unless I am 100% sure that he is right, especially since there seems to be conflicting information from official sources as to what actually qualifies for my truck van. You know, and so before I try to put a bunch of money into buying another different catalytic converter, I'm going to make sure that this one that Carolyn got for me, because she works at a muffler shop, is in fact not compliant because the information is conflicting. So I'm basically going to get another one, but I just wanted to make this video mostly because if other people are thinking about box, I think a box truck, I mean, look at this. This is already starting to look like way more homey. I think a box truck is a great platform for building on, but much like school buses and other sort of non-standard vehicles, once you get out of vehicle classes that people expect people to own, that people buy just to, you know, keep at their house. Once you get out of those vehicle classes and into school buses and box trucks and larger trucks and even some of your larger vans, you might run into the problem of things that have weird qualifications for you. and they're very smooth and direct for somebody who has a fleet of vehicles. Like, somebody who has a fleet of vehicles just would have had the shop do all the research for them and paid the shop and moved on with their lives. And I'm not exactly in that position. I'm just an independent owner who happens to have a box truck that used to be commercial. And even if I had this rated as an RV right now, it still wouldn't change this situation, because this is about California compliance with the engine that's under the hood. And the height and weight of the truck. And it'll still be those things once it's transferred to an RV. The only thing the RV qualification will do is it might qualify me for RV insurance. RV insurers can still reject you. There are RV insurers that will not cover conversions. And like, if you want to skip the scales, because I've even heard of people having a problem with the scales in step vans, where people assumed the step van was a work truck and then they had to explain it was an RV. It might get you through some of those situations. But it won't help you when California is saying this engine needs this catalytic converter. So having the RV qualification now or later really doesn't affect that problem, except the next time I have to go through emissions. So I'm just going to get another opinion on it before I go into trying to pay very expensive dollar for a different catalytic converter when I have one. I wasn't sure that this could not go on my truck before I come up with more money. As for so yeah, that's basically where I am with the converter situation. The rest of my wallpaper did come in, so I finished that wall yesterday, which I was really happy about. I finished attaching these wood panels. They're all fully attached. Before, they were just attached for safety, enough that I could drive it and like they wouldn't fall over. But I went down all of the studs behind the wall and made attachments all the way down all of the studs. All the metal studs that were already in this box truck are already 16 on center. 16 on center is also common in houses for framing out wood walls and stuff, and it just happens the metal, I call them ribs sometimes, but the metal that I took the wood off was already 16 on center, so I just insulated in between the 16 on center metal ribs that were already there, and then I attached my walls to them. And I'm going to basically do the same thing on the ceiling. It's insulated in between the little metal rib structures that are up there, and then I'm going to just attach my ceiling to the metal ribs that are already up there, because that seems like the easiest thing to do. So that's the plan for the ceiling, which is obviously unfinished, and you can still see that that's just basically insulation up there. But today, all I did was deal with this whole catalytic converter situation, and it was just disappointing because I thought it was going to be really simple. I had the converter, I was going to walk into this muffler shop, they were going to install it, and it was going to be, I didn't imagine myself making all these multiple trips trying to like sort it out. So yeah, that was me running my mouth. And sometimes I think this doesn't show me the whole chat because I'm not seeing any of the chat. Let me see. All right. D says, you finished the wallpaper, looks good. Thank you so much. And I did buy extra wallpaper in my live stream where I didn't have any sound, my second live stream of the night. I was talking about there's a YouTuber girl on YouTube. Her name is Tina on the Roam, and she converted a U-Haul box truck, and she used wallpaper, and she did not have a positive experience with the wallpaper. I don't expect that wallpaper to last forever. It's peel and stick wallpaper. It's essentially contact paper. Probably after some like trips and travel and living in the box truck, and Mickey deciding to scratch on it, maybe it's probably going to get a little bit damaged. So I do have right now an extra roll, and if at some point in the future I just want to replace it, it's not going to peel off and replace. So it's not anything where I expect it to last like 30 years without damage. I expect to have to replace that at some point. And I have extra rolls on hand of that particular wallpaper. Plus, in the future, if I just want to take it all down, it's made to be removable. But for right now, I'm really happy with that. I love that sort of birch tree sort of effect. What I should say, a little boondocking in the city. I can imagine the days when I can actually get out to some nature by looking at my birch trees back there. So yeah. Woo, sorry, I'm putting my finger in front of the camera. Freedom Dove says yes, get a second opinion. Sheila says the build is really coming along. Heatherlyn says love the tree wallpaper, such an awesome idea. Freedom Dove says this is one of the reasons I chose not to go with a schoolie or a box truck. Freedom Dove, I never would have done it as my first vehicle. Like, that just seems like a lot to get into. I think by the time I got this, like, you know, I'd been living out of vehicles going on 3 years at that point. I knew there was going to be a couple of more hurdles, but I couldn't imagine taking on everything that was brand new, living out of a vehicle, and dealing with all the legal schmeagle of trying to get a commercial vehicle legally called an RV by the government. Along with all the complications of like finding mechanics that'll even take you because of your height. Like every vehicle I've had before this, I could cover with regular AAA, and I knew I had all the roadside assistance I needed. And then with this truck, it's become an issue. So it's definitely something you don't want to go into lightly. And I am glad, like, the first thing I had was a minivan, because all I was doing was learning how to live out of, well, the first thing I had was a car, but that was more a forced situation, so we ain't gonna go into that. The first thing I chose to live in and made like an active attempt to live in fully was a minivan. And the good thing about that was legally it was just a car. I just didn't deal with making it anything else. It could fit anywhere. It could go to almost any mechanic, and that was a good thing, especially like to start out with. And I knew there were going to be things to discover going this road, but not discovering how to do like solar for the first time, on top of like having to deal with the issues of this being a non-standard vehicle that independent owners usually have. I had to remember not to do that because it's going to put my hand like right over the camera. So let's not do that. Brenda says, I like the side of the box truck. I'm really surprised about how she handled the back door, keeping it. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I know a lot of people, like, get rid of those doors and build all kinds of things, but really it was just a practical thing where I knew I did not have the means, money, or assistance to remove that back door, and it wasn't a huge priority to me, and I'd already seen other people who kept their back door and it was fine, so I wasn't really that pressured to get rid of it. If anything, I thought I might add a door on the side at some point. I never really was pressed about getting rid of the roll-up door. Like, at most, even at one point, I was trying to find one of those box trucks that has a side door, and it just didn't happen. But, like, I was more interested in the side door than I ever was really switching out that roll-up door. Kathleen Klein, I can do that. But before, this is not light. This is a heavy item. So before I go through all the trouble of trying to mail this back anywhere, and it's a perfectly good brand new converter. Before I go through all the trouble of trying to mail this anywhere, I want to be sure this guy knows what he's talking about, because there's no reason to go through a bunch of hoops, which is what it will be in the end, if he's just flat out wrong. So that's sort of the situation that I'm in right now. I want a second opinion before I think about replacements or like spending more money on a different converter. I just want to be sure, and there's no reason to push myself like super fast if I don't need to. Um, and Carolyn gifted this to me, so I wanna eliminate all the questions I have about this one before I do other things. um, Van Gogh, the Game of Betsy Reed. That is quite the name. And thank you for the $4.99 super chat. uh, Let me see. Definitely, Klein. That's not a bad idea. I mean, I don't know for sure if any trucking company has the same size, but that's not a bad idea. Especially with these trucks like losing their converters left and right. Um, Brenda says Mickey thinks the trees are real and scratches at it. Absolutely adorable. Maria Jackson says I missed the blue lights. I do plan to run some LED lights in the future. I don't want to do it now because I need to do some. I want to get the ceiling in and some trim in before I deal with that. So that's why I don't have LED lights in, but I do want to track some LED lights in here. Maria says the sink looks great. Thanks. Um, Julie says, how's your exercise plan and eating going? I haven't seen any new videos on your other channel lately. I wanted to do a video about that. It basically went to contents, and then the that and build out the box truck. I realized I was kind of falling apart. At this point, because I keep having to pull things out. I actually do not even have my exercise equipment in the truck. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to try to get my eating back on plan, which I've been slowly doing. And as far as like exercise, I'm going to focus on getting my eating back on plan. And I'm not really going to be able to give myself a routine until this box truck is together, which is why I've been trying to move quicker. I need to get the bed in here. I need to get my dry toilet built. I need to get those things in order. I need to have a house. And the in-between state where I was trying to juggle building the box truck, running the show, and running the YouTube channel, and also exercising every day, it became too much, and I started stress eating. And I was able to stop the stress eating when I took some things away. And allowed myself not to be perfect. Because the thing is, if I can get my eating back together, the exercise is just a bonus. What is it? Fitness happens in the gym. Something else happens in the kitchen. I don't know. So I am sort of trying to even been able to keep up on build videos, let alone shoot extra videos. So I'm just sort of, for my own mental health, I was like, I'll come back to it and explain at some point. I never thought I'd do it in a live, but since it came up. But right now, I just want to focus on getting my eating back together. And getting the house done. I have headspace for a routine that I don't have right now. And something's got to give. Either like the show needs to not exist as a thing I have to do, or building my house needs to not exist as a thing I have to do. But like right now, I'm just not in the headspace to juggle many balls as I was trying to juggle and do them perfectly. So yeah. But eating well is something I can practice every day. And so, like, I'm just focusing on getting, like, that back together. Kathleen Klein, my truck is gas, not diesel. Byron says that truck looks like a 450 truck. It's a 350. It's a Ford E350 Super Duty. Um boop, boop, boop. Victoria says your house is looking better every week. Thank you so much. I feel so close and so far away from my goals. It's like I can list them out. It's like I need to do the ceiling, I need to install the bed platform. Once I get the bed up in the air, that gives me my floor space back, which means I can bring my bike back in here because I took the bike out. And I can see the steps. But I'm like, it still feels like so far away because when I start breaking those steps down into the actual full to-do list, like it took me 2 days to get these walls fully safely attached. I mean, by fully safely, I feel comfortable like moving forward with building out on them. Safe before it was just don't fall down while I'm driving safe. And then like I had to go through all the studs and that just took forever and my arm was like so sore. And so in my head it's like it's really simple. I just have to do this, this, and this, and that step will be done. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of stuff actually. Yeah. Kathleen Klein says, regardless of fuel type, talk to heavy duty mechanics, not Joe Blow auto mechanics. And I agree that the one you talk to. Okay, so the guy I talked to runs a muffler shop specifically. So this is what he does. And he actually does work with commercial sized trucks, but he's the only one I've talked to. So it's not that it's not his field of expertise. There was literally a truck being worked on there that was almost identical to mine while I was there. But you know, it was a work truck. So, you know, I'm, like I said, I'm going to get a second opinion. Yeah, but it was a muffler shop. So, like, they specifically do catalytic converters on trucks, cars, vans, etc. He even had a lift outside that was specifically set up for larger vehicles. So it's something he's done before and does do. It is possible, completely possible, I agree, that he was just focused on, you know, selling me a cat that he purchased. Or not, or he honestly thought like the cat was wrong. Either way, I'm gonna get a second opinion because the jury seems to be out on this truck. Like if it was like, I don't know, ProMaster, like those are fairly common. Like if it was a like 2016, so fairly recent ProMaster, I don't be there to think there'd be this big of a debate about it. Because it's a 2002 cutaway Ford van box truck with an 8x12 box on the back. If it was like a Ford E350 van, straight out, I think there'd be less debate about it. But I don't know. That's just my opinion after everything I've experienced today, after literally having people pull up the list for me and tell me why they're right. My thought is that if this was a straight up van or a straight up pickup truck, all of this would be slightly easier. And because legally it's a cutaway van, but it's also a heavy duty truck, it got complicated. That's my thought on the matter, as far as like what everybody's opinions is. Even people who are connected to the DMV. Like what everybody's opinions is on what is legal seems to be conflicting. So yeah. Let me see. Oh, it looks like I'm not sure that YouTube shows me all of the chat. Like, and I'll see stuff that I didn't see the first time. So obviously it's me or it's YouTube. The Masked Nomad, I just saw a super chat. I don't think I saw that before. Glad you are well. Always enjoy your content. Thank you very much. I don't think I responded to that. Dorothy asked me if I'm looking for a compost toilet. No, I'm going to build a dry toilet, which I feel like is a more proper name for them. We're calling them compost toilets, but nobody's composting. They're literally throwing that stuff in the trash. That's not composting. I don't care if it's called a Nature's Head $1,000. It's not composting unless you're actually composting with it. So yes, I'm planning on building my own dry toilet system. Honestly, it looks like super simple. It's like you need a urine separator and a place for the poo to go, and the poo needs to land in some sort of material, which is like peat moss or peat moss. I don't know. Peat moss is the one that pops up a lot. So you basically need something for the poo to land in and a diverter for the urine to go down, and maybe some way to agitate it, which could be a stick. Like, it's not that complicated. So I'm definitely not buying one. I'm gonna build one myself. In fact, I already have most of the stuff for it, but I might have a porta potty for going to the DMV and, you know, getting my truck converted. But I plan in the long term to have a dry toilet. Freedom Dove X, what did you do about the ladder situation? Right now, I don't have a ladder. That's the ladder situation. It's inconclusive. But what somebody pointed out to me, and I didn't think about this before I gave away my old ladder, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I have the lift gate on the back of my truck. When it's in the up position, if I put a standard short ladder on it, I can get to the roof. And so I've been so obsessed about getting to the roof from the ground, I didn't even think about that. And I was like, oh my goodness, you're right. Like, people were talking about putting ladders on the hood and stuff, and I wasn't doing that because I didn't want to die. But I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, the lift gate is literally a flat surface between the bottom of the box and the top of the box, and I can definitely put a small ladder on that if I need to. And I think I only need like an 8 to 10 foot ladder on there. I could probably go as low as an 8 and still be able to. I could definitely go as low as an 8 because it's about 8 feet up to there. The point is, I could use a shorter ladder on the lift gate and be able to get up to my roof, and it just never occurred to me until somebody else pointed that out. And I was like, I feel so stupid. I could have kept my ladder. My little ladder. My big ladder got damaged, and so I had to let it go. And honestly, I'm glad I got those hooks off the side of my truck. It's been way easier to navigate the truck without the side hanging ladder. As much as I liked it for aesthetics, like aesthetic, it made me look more like a work truck. But I've been so happy since those hooks and the ladder has been gone. But Byron, it's a 5.4. It's not a 6.5. Robert Dragoff said, did you get a new cat yet? The problem is I have this, and the muffler guy told me that this is not compliant. But the muffler shop I got it from told me that this is compliant. So now before I try to get a different converter or pay a shop for a converter locally, I want to confirm one way or another that this is or is not a legit cat for California and my vehicle, because they're tinkering information on it. And if you look at the first terrible live I did, I kind of went through all that. I might go over it again. Basically, California sucks. And I usually don't support that statement, but California sucks because they make this so freaking hard. And actually, what's crazy is I found out because this truck was manufactured in California, it's actually worse. If it had been manufactured out of state, there's actually more options than it is because it was manufactured in state. Or at least that's what the small guy told me. Because at first he was like, oh, maybe. And then he was like, wait a minute, let me show me your sticker again. Because I had a picture of the sticker that's under the engine hood. And he's like, oh, man, it was like manufactured in California. So it doesn't qualify for this, that. I don't know. He said a bunch of stuff. So, yeah. Do I have a TikTok? I do not have a TikTok. That's what the kids are into these days, right? The TikTok. Freedom Dove. Yes, I agree with you. Compost toilets for nomads is a ridiculous idea. Dry toilet is a much better term. It's a much more accurate term, and you're the one who like opened my eyes, so I thank you for it because you were absolutely correct. ESP and me said I like Dawn's term human litter box. That's my favorite thing. It's like I'll have my litter box, Mickey will have his litter box. We just live in that litter box. Good night, Kathleen. How wide is the lift gate? Just be careful. The lift gate is like, it's like half the back door back there. It's pretty big. Like, I've literally loaded it up with like tons of stuff and like lifted it up and stood on it. It can more than handle, like, even if a ladder was on it, you'd probably still have more than a few feet in front of the ladder. It's heavy duty. It's a heavy duty big lift gate. This used to be a furniture truck. It gives you any idea. This used to be a Sears furniture truck, and then it was an appliance truck. Robert Dragoff says California sucks. Really say it isn't so. California's pretty. California has its positives. But when it comes to nitpicky crap like this, California freaking sucks. I mean, it's just so freaking nitpicky. And it's a California thing. Like, if I was not in California, my options would be entirely different. And it's like, I want to pass emissions. Like, I'm not even trying to fight emissions. I'm not complaining that they have emissions. They are pain in the butts about it. But the idea behind sort of the smog check isn't bad. Like, the idea and motivation behind it isn't terrible, in my opinion. And there's a whole big debate you can get into about that. But the fact that they make it like so complicated to replace a part is dumb. Like, it's so dumb. Because, like, if it was just a make a model year thing, I had so many options. But because I have to worry about California carb compliance, on top of that, it gets like super complicated. And it's annoying. It's just freaking annoying. Shannon says, hello from Houston. California only sucks in some parts, but the weather is awesome mostly. I mean, yeah, I mean, it depends on where you are, like, and what your idea of, like, nice weather is. The first time I went to LA, it was too damn hot. I'm not gonna lie, it was too damn, like, because I came into San Francisco, flew in from the East Coast, and I expected to get off the plane and people were going to be at the beach and in shorts, and I was wearing jackets all the time. So then I was like, oh, California isn't what I thought. And so I adjusted to being in the Bay Area, and having this weird weather, up and down thing where like you could start out in a jacket in the morning and be in a t-shirt by the middle of the day, but I wore pants most of the time still and not really shorts a lot. And then I went to LA for the first time and I thought I was going to die and melt. California has a lot of microclimates, which is what I've learned. And when you think about it, it makes sense. I mean, California is the entire West Coast, like except for two other states that are much smaller. Like this is like Oregon, Washington, California. And you have to think with that much land going east and west, not east and west, north and south. East and west is this way, but north and south, there's got to be a lot of different climates. And I didn't realize how much. Now, there's not really that many. There are areas in California where you're going to get snow, but there's not that many for most of the state. But even still, when you think about that, north to south distance and how huge it is, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of microclimates. Like everywhere is in LA. So that's sort of been my learning curve for California. But I'm mostly talking about how picky they are with some of their rules. And especially everywhere you go in California, they tell you that you're going to die from cancer. And it's a California only sign. And I was like, how many of these signs are you going to see before you just don't care anymore? It's like, this product has this and it's going to give you cancer. And this product uses this and it might give you cancer. Oh, also, this thing has this and it might give you cancer. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, everywhere you go in California, it's Prop 66, I think. Prop 66 warning. And it's a California thing. It's freaking everywhere. And it's funny. It's not even annoying to me. It's funny. But what it does do, and it may be Prop 66 and some other things, sometimes it actually blocks what you can actually order and use in California. There are products I cannot order on Amazon because I want to ship them to California. which is crazy. Does your wallpaper open after you walk? Does your back? Sorry, let me read this right. MLC and T Schoolie asked if my back door opens after I wallpapered it. Yes, it does. Does the wallpaper crack or rip while open? No, because it basically, I have flexible insulation on it, and then the wallpaper's over the flexible insulation, so it's not directly on the wall. It's on some self-adhesive Frost King insulation, and so that insulation and the wallpaper do bend. I do expect that I'll get creases over time, but as of right now, the door opens fine, as much as it opened anyway, and the wallpaper's fine. Yeah. I expect it's going to show some wear and tear over time, but that's also why I'm like, it's peel and stick. It's basically contact paper. I can replace it. Victoria Hinton says, okay, Sears, I want a counter depth fridge. It could have been delivered in this. It could have. It probably did deliver some fridges. It was a Sears furniture truck. You can still actually, I'm going to paint the outside at some point, but if you really look, you can still see Sears on the side, because like they took it off and tried to, but they didn't really try that hard. They basically probably took just the coloring lettered off, so you can kind of see like where it says Sears, like if you're really close to it. It's kind of funny. I'm scrolling right now. Victoria, good night. Byron Moore said, I would take a picture of the front pipe. It might still have the sensors in the front at the Y. You might just need the one rear. As far as I know, I do need one, and the truck only had one. But that's another thing that came up today. So, like, yeah. MIL, is it milk or MILC in T Schoolie? You have a E350 cutaway bus that you converted. It has a 7.3 liter diesel, and I love it. That is awesome. Shannon says, I know there is a catalyst covering alarm system and guards you can drill on to protect it, so I want something myself, but has to settle for a car alarm at the moment. Well, also a lot of shops, because they know these things are being stolen, they offer to weld on either a cap or a mesh that makes it harder to cut through. And the shop I was at actually does offer that as well. And there's also like a cat cage you can buy online. The good thing about that is you can transport it to other vehicles. And for some vehicle models, they even have custom plates that you can buy. It's usually like the Toyotas and things like that that have them, because I was just looking up online. So there's a lot of things, and you can get location based motion alarms. Right now I got nothing under there to protect, so I haven't bought any of that stuff, but I've been doing research on it, and also trying to debate, would it be better to just get the cat cage or have the muffler shop weld something on. Mary says Palm Springs is 91 degrees right now. Yeah. Freedom Dove says Prop 65. Thank you. That's what it is. Prop 65. LOL. Prop 65 is everywhere. You go in California, you'll be convinced you're going to get cancer. Like, Prop 65 warning. You stood near this. You're getting cancer. I'm really like, why do I care anymore? I'm getting cancer everywhere. Shannon says it's way hot here in hell. I mean, Houston. You're discouraged. When should I visit Texas? Because I definitely want to go to Texas, but I don't want to melt. So is there a good time to visit Texas where I won't melt? Good night, Tim. Tim said good night. It was 107 degrees Fahrenheit for my non-US people in southern Alberta the other day. Wow, that's a lot of degrees. Julianne says, yeah, I never understood why they call it a composting toilet if they are not actually composting it. Because if you say you have a composting toilet, you sound green. And selling a composting toilet sounds cooler than here's a human litter box to poop in. Because when you really think about like the idea of water, and water is like a resource you have to go out and get when you're a nomad or living on the road or even just camping, occasionally. And so not having to divert that resource or refill that resource in the toilet is kind of helpful. So having a dry toilet is good. But dry toilet doesn't sound nice. Whereas it's like the whole solar generator debate. Like, solar generator sounds cooler than power box, which is essentially what it is. It's just a rechargeable power box. But solar generator sounds better for marketing. And some marketing has gotten away from it and they'll call them power stations. It's the same thing with the composting toilet. Composting toilet sounds like you're being green and doesn't sound like you're pooping in a fancy bucket, which is essentially what you're doing. You're pooping in a fancy bucket, and then you're stirring it around, and then pooping in your fancy bucket and stirring it around, and then eventually you throw it out. But you're not like putting it back in the earth to grow anything, which is what composting really is, but it sounds like you're being green. And like, probably nobody's going to buy $1,000 poop bucket, but $1,000 composting toilet sounds like some. I was like, oh yes, I will be green and get that composting toilet. And it's like, where are you composting it at? Byron says, I worked on those trucks for 25 years. Oh, awesome. Shannon says, I just learned about composting toilet. It really is better because you can dump it anywhere that has a trash can, unlike the others. You can also get a bucket with a luggable loo lid, and it's the same thing. Composting toilet just sounds better, but literally, the people who are pooping in buckets are doing the same thing as people pooping in a Nature's Head or some other composting toilet. You're pooping in some sort of bagged system usually, which may or may not have something like kitty litter, like peat moss or something. Then you're bagging it up and throwing it away. The fact that it's $1,000 composting toilet doesn't actually make it any different from a $10 or $5 like bucket you get from Home Depot. It just costs more and looks more like a toilet. So yeah, that's the only difference, really. If you do get a porta potty and it's not like a crazy size, then you just have to be aware of going to restrooms. Because look, when I had a porta potty for a little while, that's what I did. When I was at a park that had a restroom, I just grabbed the bottom of my toilet and I dumped it out. I wasn't a big fan of taking them into stores and stuff, but like, you know, you can get the same, you're doing the same thing as somebody who's peeing in a bottle and pooping in a bucket. Like, it's the exact same thing. You're just doing it in something that looks a little bit more like a traditional toilet like you see in a house. So it really honestly just comes down to an aesthetic thing. You're still pooping in a bucket. It just looks fancier. um and for almost everywhere you could probably throw your trash, like you're at a rush stop, if you just have one of those portable porta potties, not an RV toilet that has to go into like a waste tank under the rig, but if you just have a porta potty, probably where you're getting rid of your trash probably has a toilet, which is probably, let's say you're at a gas station and you want to throw out your trash. They probably have a bathroom too, and then you just pull out your porta potty and you dump it into the restroom toilet. I preferred to do it when I had a porta potty in places that had outdoor accessible toilets. Like, I didn't really have to carry it into businesses, but you could. For me, it's really just about the water. And the fact that dry toilets don't really need a flushing source. Unlike like the Thetfords and the other porta potty systems. Terry Newell said, don't fight the regulations. I live in Orchard County. On my block, 3 died of cancer, and there are 7 of us still fighting. Terry, I hope you didn't take that as me making fun of cancer. I'm not making fun of cancer. And like I said, I think California is well-intentioned. It's just to the point of I could not order butane online when I had my butane camping stove because of Prop 66 or some crap. But I could go in the store and buy it. So it was literally the same product was already present in California. And so that's the point where I think good intentions are maybe like pushing it a little bit. Like, I think it comes from a good place, but like it's like everywhere you turn around, it's like restricted. Yeah, and that's when it's like, at what point is this getting a little ridiculous? But I was definitely not making fun of cancer or cancer survivors. It's a very serious thing, and it's no joke. Oh, yes, it's milk, but I spelled it milk for midlife crisis. Milk is the name of my bus. Julie says, once your box truck is built, you'll be able to empty your storage room and get rid of that expense. Yes. Shannon says it's mostly all for Prius and Toyotas. It's really hard to find one for my van because it just clamps around the cat and your pipe. And it's a self-install item. You don't even need a shop to do it. If the shop does it, if you go to a muffler shop, like while I was at the shop today, there was a guy who literally just bought on his vehicle to protect his catalytic converter. The shop is literally, they might do a mesh or a plate that they do, so it's not vehicle specific. So you're not going to find it online, but if you go to a muffler shop, they might have an option for like welding on something to protect your cat if you want to go that route, and it'll just be like a wire mesh or a plate or something. It won't be something you can buy online and get installed. So that can be to any type of vehicle. The Grumpy Old Witch, Victor Madonna, have enjoyed watching you grow and bloom in your van life journey. Wish you the best. Good night, even though you're probably gone as slow as I get through this. Shannon says, oh my God, you should, but not in summer, LOL. So just avoid Texas in summer and come in like the winter or like the fall. Got it. Scott said it was 107 in Salt Lake City yesterday. Woo! The Grumpy Old Witch says the best time to visit Texas is between November through early May. Cool, got that. A human litter box costs $20. An environmental composting toilet costs $1,000. Only they're doing the same thing. Like literally, they end up in the same landfill. The composting toilet isn't doing anything. The bucket isn't doing. Like it's literally the same thing as far as like its actual environmental impact. Identical, totally identical. Unless you are putting it in a composting bag and you are always throwing it away into compost that at least somebody else is going to process. But if you are bagging it and putting it in the garbage, I don't care if you paid $1,000 for it. You are not doing anything better for the environment than the person that's pooping in the bucket. Craig Browning says, I got a luggable loo and a plan to fit it with an exhaust fan venting tube to outside, which is basically what you do to get rid of the smell. For anybody who doesn't know, if you do want to build a dry or composting toilet, whatever you want to call it, one of the things that'll help you cut down on the smell is having an exhaust system. And it's basically like your poop fan in your house bathroom, in that it gives that escape to the smell, and some kind of steering mechanism. Craig, I think you can do it. I'm excited to see your homemade human litter luggable loo box. And the biggest problem with a composting toilet and nomads is travel. Like, if you always live in the same place, you may know where to actually, you could actually put your compost section in a compost bag. And mind you, with the composting toilet, you still have a pee bottle. So you still have to find a bathroom to dump your pee bottle in, because that's basically what you're doing. You're diverting your urine away from your number two. And so your urine is usually going into a container that you still have to get rid of in some way. So really, you're still going to have to find bathrooms to dump your number one bottle. Then your number two is usually going into a separate container, which usually has sort of cat litter like substance. Peat moss is the one I jump on because I can't remember the other ones. I'm going to be honest. I've heard about 3 options. But so let's say it's peat moss, and so it goes into the peat moss, and like basically with the nature's head specifically, you have like that turning agitator, which just like when the cat gets done in his box, he scratches. He moves that stuff around. So essentially, that agitator on the side of like the nature's head, just to use that as an example, is doing the same thing. It's moving this stuff around. It can still smell, which is why most people will still vent their composting or dry toilets. But at the end of the day, at some point, you need to get rid of it. And so, just like when you clean that litter box, usually it's just going in a bag and it's going in the garbage. And if you're in an area where you know it could go, where it would actually compost, that's one thing. Human manure is a thing. People think it's not. Like, if you actually do some research, there are people who use human manure, as it's called. It's literally called human manure. In an actual composting process, but that's not what's happening. And it's really hard to do when you're moving around. Like, the availability of just basic recycling cans from driving across the country was vastly different. You know, in California, I can find recycling cans everywhere. So basic recycling of like cans and bottles, there are recycling cans everywhere. I'm gonna be honest. In Maryland, they barely give a crap. So you're lucky to find a recycling. There's just single stream, throw all your trash here. And so moving across the country, and especially going into other countries, you never know what kind of situation you're going to be in as far as your ability to get rid of trash, let alone separate compostable stuff from garbage, from standard recycling like paper, aluminum, etc., etc., etc. One thing is also a misnomer. I'm sure there is a way to get your compost somewhere where it would actually be compost, but that's mostly not happening when you're traveling across the country in a van. So that's why it's a little bit of a misnomer as well. It's a little bit of a difficult thing to actually do and complete the process. Byron, I wish I could just come to you and get her done. Actually, I wish I could just honestly, I really trust Carolyn. I think Carolyn knows what the heck she's talking about. I wish I could just go down to Fontana and have her install this because honestly, I trust her. I 100% think she knows. She works at a muffler shop, for goodness sake, in California, not in another state. In California, I think she knows what she's talking about. So I really wish it was convenient just to go there and just get it installed. Jesus says you never get tired of always being on the move. I'd rather have a home base. I have no attachment to ever having a home base. Like, not at all. I am sick of how long I've had to be still. Like, I'm ready to go right now. And I can't. I cannot wait to get in a place, get far enough in the build. There's always going to be stuff I want to improve. But as far as like getting the big stuff done in the build, the big stuff where I need a storage unit, like I hate that I have to be connected to the storage unit. Like I absolutely hate it. Like I've had to have without storage units before, and I always ended up getting rid of them because I hated the idea there was this other place I had an obligation to get stuff. So I'm so excited to reach the point where I can really fully move back in here, and there's no dividing of my stuff between the box truck and the storage unit, and sort of this tie to a location based on where the storage unit is. Now, it's the storage unit, the job, and also needing to ship things to myself. Whoa, sorry. There's something in my... there's a fly in here. I wasn't crazy. God darn it. Got a bug. He probably came through at some point. But the point is, I have no attachment. Like, I spent 37 years in one state, mostly in one city. I lived in Baltimore, Maryland, and I never traveled. My mom was not a big traveler, so I didn't travel as a kid. And so the most exciting thing I did was fly across the country. But since then, I've mostly been trapped in the Bay Area of California. And so it's been really cool when I've gotten to leave the Bay Area of California and see more of the United States, or even just see more of California in and of itself. Because California is a lot of land and it's a lot of beautiful places besides the places where I'm stuck right now. There's so much California. I know I just ragged on California for like stupid stuff, but there's a lot of beautiful places in California that I still have not seen. There is so much of the United States I have not seen. There are so many places that I want to see. I want to go to Canada. I want to really travel Canada. I've been to Canada once for a few hours and then I had to leave because at that point I had a job and I had a few days and I took those few days to drive up to California mostly because I wanted to meet Chrome and I did. And then I drove on back because I had a show obligation that I had to get to at the time. So I'm really excited to like go back to Canada and actually explore it. I'm iffy about Mexico, and that's mostly because the language barrier scares me a little more. And maybe at some point I want to like, leave the country in a way where I have to fly. But right now there's just so if I spent whatever's left of my life, because I'm 40, 40. How old am I? I was born in 79. But anyway, if I spent, whatever is left of my life just exploring the United States and Canada, that's a lot of land to cover. I have absolutely no desire to feel stuck in one place. Like, a lot of nomads, I know eventually they want land. Right now, I can't see myself wanting that because that's something I have to worry about when I'm not there. And if, I continue to try to develop in some sort of like financial stronghold, hopefully at some point, I can always stop for a little while if I really want to. You can rent places you temporarily and then leave, and then you have no obligation to this long-term connection to it. And I just don't want that. I'm not married. I don't have kids. At this point, I probably won't have kids. I thought I really wanted kids when I was younger, but it just never happened. And now I'm like over 40. It's probably not going to happen. I'm not married. Like, what do I need to stay still for? Like, I'd rather see more of the world in whatever time I have left on this earth. But yeah, I just ran my mouth a lot. People are like going to bed on me. Good night, everyone who's going to bed. Shannon Boulder says, yes, Chrome poops in a bucket, but the smell would have to be bad if you can't throw it away right away, it seems. So, Shannon, number one, I do believe that Chrome's bucket, just to use him as an example, is an emergency bucket. So, ideally, most people have a poop bucket. It is the backup, not the primary. So, if it's the middle of the night and you don't want to go out, you have something you can poop in. If you have access to a restroom, you try to prioritize pooping to your public restroom stops so that every time you poop, you're not doing it in your van. And when you're out in the wild, you also have the option to dig a hole. I know it doesn't sound like really glorious or like sexy or Instagram worthy, but you could always use a cat hole. Like Curious Carly. When Curious Carly was traveling in her van, she never had any sort of traditional toilet. Like, the standby for her was a cat hole. And, she did van life for a few years, I think. I can't remember how long. I used to watch Carly's videos, like, all the time. I need to reach out to her. I haven't, like, sent her a message in a while. But, like, she never had a traditional toilet. But it's like, if you do have the poop bucket, generally speaking, it is your backup. It is for when you have no other options. Like, if you're at a campsite that has a bathroom, you're probably going to default pooping to that bathroom. It is that this is so you have an option when the other options don't exist. But even if you're in an RV or whatever, like, all of those have to be cleaned out eventually. I don't care if it's going in a bucket, a waste can, whatever you are pooping and peeing in, it has to be cleaned out eventually. Whether you're doing it at an RV dump station or taking your little bag and putting it in the trash can. So, almost everybody who lives a nomadic lifestyle, almost everybody, have other options as often as they are available. Like, it's your backup choice. It's not it's so that you have it when you need it, but when there are other options to reduce filling that up on a daily basis, you're exploiting those other options. So yeah, I think like people think of it like living in a house. And the thing about living in a vehicle is, to a certain extent, especially if you do it long time, you really embrace the ways it's not living in a house. Because like I have a tank that's going to fill up. Like with the sink, I need to fill up my water. Eventually that water will be empty and I will have to fill it. So if I'm going out in the middle of nowhere, I think about, do I have enough water to sustain me? How far will I be out? Is it very accessible for me to come back for water? Should I have extra water? Like before I used to have like my main water, and then I'd have 2-gallon bottles. Like when I was in the minivan, I had a couple of extra bottles that would just sit around just in case my primary water got empty, before I realized it was getting low. And so you have to like think about those things like ahead of time, because you're not, unless you're in an RV park and you only do RV parks, like you're not constantly hooked up to water that's going to endlessly flow. So you can build a shower and have a water toilet, a water requirements toilet, and have a sink, but all things are the same water source, and eventually the dirty water needs to be taken out of your vehicle. And it doesn't matter if you're doing it at a dump station or taking like a literal jug you have out of your sink out. You have to be thinking about that all the time. So times where you can avoid adding to the fill of those things, you're going to learn to avoid it. You're going to learn to take advantage of those opportunities where you're not either wasting your resources or filling up your waste areas, whatever they are, whether it's a bucket or a tank underneath your vehicle. How's your cat doing? If you mean my actual animal, he's over there on the floor. Can you see him? There he is. No, that's not a poop bucket. That's actually my trash can, that white bucket right there. Since we've been talking about buckets, I just want to be, that is not my poop bucket. I'm being honest, I swear. And there's Mickey just sitting on the floor with his eyes closed. But he's not laying down, but his eyes are closed. He was chilling behind me earlier, and then he got annoyed because I started moving around trying to get stuff. Oh crap, I need to get off of here. So I'm gonna scroll through the list and just see if there's anything I want to respond to. I didn't realize I did it, guys. Thank you guys who have been through all the live stream fails with me. Destiny waits for you. Pine pellets. That's another one. I was like, what else besides peat moss? Because that just keeps popping in my head. Carmen says my dad would bring home human manure from his job at the sewer district or used it in our yard, and it actually worked great. Oh. Freedom Dove says pine pellets didn't work for her. Murder, that's a beer bong. That is awesome. That's the best urine diverter ever. Cedar pellets are great for litter boxes, cat and human. Thank you, Shannon. It's like, let's get this girl off the peat moss. Let's show her some of the other things that you can use in your human litter box. Pink Love X, how do you stop someone from stealing a new one? This is back to catalytic converters. I don't know how we started talking about toilets. We've been talking about toilets for a minute. Is there anything a person can do to protect their catalytic converter from being stolen? There are many things. Nothing is a guarantee. I mean, if somebody wants, if you're, if you don't catch the person underneath the vehicle, and honestly, a friend of mine, he sent me a video because he wanted me to be aware. Somebody confronted somebody who was stealing the catalytic converter and they got shot or stabbed. I can't remember. And he was like, I'm upset about your catalytic converter, but basically he doesn't want me to get hurt over, something on the truck, which is, fair. But so one, etching your VIN on it, which really doesn't stop them from stealing it, but makes it more obvious that it's stolen. It depends on where they're taking these things once they steal them. There's a cat cage. You can literally ask a shop. You can literally just go to a shop that welds. Usually muffler shops have welders, and you can ask if they have any protective meshes. A lot of them are designing them now because people are aware of the catalytic theft. And they'll just weld it on, and it's literally a welded mesh. For some models of vehicles, they do have catalytic converter plates that you can buy online. The cat cage should be universal to any converter because it literally just stretches around the catalytic converter. The good thing about that one is you could technically take it to another vehicle and you can technically, self-install it if you want to deal with all that. There's location-based motion alarms, so they're very tiny alarms that you can put directly on the converter and literally arm it when you're away from the vehicle, or be a location-based motion alarm. So instead of reacting to everything that's moving around the vehicle, it would be like somebody's in the area where your converter is, alarm, alarm, alarm. And the good thing about noises is a lot of thieves, they rely on silence. So getting in, getting out, and nobody being none the wiser. So sometimes just a loud noise is startling enough to discourage them. And that's really all you can do, really. I would say, like, if you're really concerned about it, go to a muffler shop and try to get ahead of it. A few $100s that you need to scrape up for them to weld a mesh or a plate is better than them having to replace the catalytic converter and also putting in those protective measures after you've already lost your first one. So yeah. How's the show going? It's going all right. We've had a couple of shows canceled. The Thursday shows due to low sales. It runs Thursday through Sunday. Our weekends have been great. Our Fridays are usually good. Sundays are iffy, but Thursdays haven't been doing great. Randolph said you met Chrome. Cool. I did, and I was giggling so much I don't know how many words I actually said because I was nervous. Terry Newell says I'm only a year older than his son. That's good. I'm close to somebody's age. Freedom Dove says I would rather poop in my bucket than go to a public restroom, to be honest. Yeah. At least you know your bucket's clean. I mean, that's the good thing about the toilet in your rig is you're responsible for cleaning it. It is a crapshoot. Now, honestly, my truck stop bathrooms, most of the time, have been amazing. But honestly, the public park bathrooms are so gross. Like, public park bathrooms are like the grossest thing ever. Usually the truck stop bathrooms, at least appearance-wise, are pretty clean. But yeah, the parks, most of those bathrooms are so gross. Gene is mentioning solar-powered air conditioners. I've not heard of those. That'd be interesting, though, because the biggest problem with air conditioning is just how much power it needs to actually run. But I'm wondering how those run. Do they have an internal battery? Like, I don't know. I have questions. I'd have to like do some research. All right. People are really falling off. Which I didn't realize how long I'd been on this particular stream. It's been over an hour. I didn't even really discuss the catalytic anymore. I'm gonna get a second opinion on this particular catalytic converter because, like I said, I trust Carolyn. This came from a muffler shop. Like, it didn't come from like somebody random online. And there's so many discrepancies. I feel like I want to do some more homework on this catalytic converter before I try to buy a different one, or like look into a different one, or shell out a bunch of money to a local muffler shop for them to buy it internally. Like, I'm just going to do some more due diligence on this and see, what a second or third opinion might say. Because, like, I literally have a catalytic converter in my hand. And it just seems, some of this just seems silly and ridiculous to me. So, good night, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this successful live stream after 2 fails. I'm not even going to edit the description of this video until morning. Thank you for everyone who joined me. And good night.